There comes a time in each of our lives when we are faced with the painful yet liberating truth: we must learn to be happy alone. We live in a world that constantly tells us we need others to complete us, that our worth is tied to the relationships we maintain, and that without connection, we are somehow lacking. But I want to tell you something important today. Your happiness does not depend on anyone else's presence. It never has, and it never will. True happiness begins when we understand our intrinsic worth and stop seeking it externally. There is a misconception in the world today that we must rely on others for our sense of self-worth. From the earliest stages of life, we are conditioned to look outside ourselves for approval, whether that's from parents, friends, teachers, or even society at large. This external validation becomes ingrained in us, shaping the way we view ourselves. We come to believe that our worth is dependent on our ability to please others, to meet certain expectations, or to be a version of ourselves that is accepted by those around us. And while there is nothing inherently wrong with receiving affirmation from others, it becomes problematic when our entire sense of self-worth is built upon it. This reliance on external validation is like building a house on a shaky foundation. It might stand for a while, but it's bound to collapse when the winds of rejection, disappointment, or loneliness blow through. The first and most important step in discovering true happiness is learning to recognize and embrace your inherent worth, not as something to be earned, but as something that is already within you. When we begin to accept ourselves fully and unconditionally, we begin to experience a profound shift in how we view our place in the world. We no longer need the constant affirmation of others to feel valuable. See, fear, longing for belonging, fear, desire, separation, pain, anxiety. We stop measuring our worth by how much others love us, approve of us, or accept us. Instead, we start to realize that we are enough, exactly as we are, regardless of anyone else's opinions or judgments. Finally, we get to realize that we are loved, educated, judged, and accepted. This is not to say that we should reject love, feedback, or connection with others. Relationships, both personal and professional, are a vital part of the human experience, and they offer us opportunities for growth, learning, and companionship. However, when we seek validation from others to fill the gaps in our sense of self, we place ourselves at the mercy of things that are outside of our control. People will inevitably disappoint us and circumstances will change. But when we anchor our worth within ourselves, we create a foundation that cannot be shaken. Learning to recognize our worth is a deeply personal and transformative process. It often requires us to confront and challenge the negative beliefs we've internalized over the years. Many of us have grown up with messages that told us we weren't good enough, that we had to do more, be more, or look different to be valued. These messages can stem from our families, schools, society, or even our own inner critic. They shape how we view ourselves and often lead us to overcompensate or try to prove our value through external achievements or the approval of others. But as long as we seek our worth in this way, we will always be vulnerable to the ever-changing tides of life. To truly embrace our worth, we must start by forgiving ourselves for the ways we've allowed external validation to dictate our sense of self. We must forgive ourselves for believing that we needed others to tell us we were enough, for sacrificing parts of who we are just to fit into someone else's mold. Self-forgiveness is not about excusing past behaviors or choices, but about acknowledging that we are human, that we are imperfect, and that we deserve love and compassion. Starting with the love and compassion we give ourselves. Let others be human and move on with their life. Once we begin to let go of the need for external validation, we can start to reconnect with our authentic selves. This process requires us to spend time alone with our thoughts and feelings, to listen to our own desires and needs, and to make choices based on what aligns with our truth. It requires us to trust ourselves, to trust that we are capable of making decisions that are in our best interest, even if others might not understand or agree with those decisions. When we learn to trust ourselves, we stop relying on others to tell us what we should do, think, or feel. Instead, we begin to trust that we have the inner wisdom and strength to navigate life on our own terms. Learning to embrace our worth also means learning to set boundaries. Boundaries are an essential part of self-care and self-respect. When we understand that we are worthy of love, respect, and kindness, we no longer tolerate situations or relationships that undermine our sense of self. Boundaries allow us to protect our energy, time, and emotional well-being. They help us create space for ourselves, space to recharge, grow, and nurture our sense of self-worth. When we set healthy boundaries, we send a message to the world and to ourselves that we value who we are and that we will not settle for anything less than what we deserve. This journey towards self-worth is not always easy. It requires unlearning the patterns and beliefs that have been ingrained in us for years. It requires us to challenge the notion that our value is based on what we do, what we achieve, or how others perceive us. But the truth is that our worth is inherent. It is not based on external achievements, appearances, or validation. We are worthy because we exist, because we are human, because we are unique and irreplaceable. And when we embrace this truth, we begin to experience a profound sense of inner peace and fulfillment that no external validation could ever provide. As we continue to cultivate this inner sense of worth, we also begin to attract relationships, opportunities, and experiences that reflect this newfound sense of value. We stop settling for less than we deserve because we know that we are worthy of the best that life has to offer. We begin to show up for ourselves in ways that we never have before, by making choices that honor our needs, by pursuing passions that bring us joy, and by embracing the person we are, flaws and all. True happiness, then, is not something that comes from the outside. It is not something that can be bought, earned, or found in someone else's approval. Happiness comes from within, from the deep understanding that we are already enough. And when we learn to recognize and embrace this truth, we step into a life that is rich with possibility, joy, and fulfillment. We no longer rely on others to define our worth, because we know that we hold the power to define it ourselves. And that, my friends, is the most liberating realization of all. And so, letting go can be one of the most difficult yet transformative experiences in life. We often cling to things, people, or situations because we believe that our happiness depends on them. We hold on to relationships that no longer serve us, jobs that drain us, and habits that keep us stuck in old patterns. But the truth is, when we hold on too tightly, we prevent ourselves from growing. Letting go doesn't mean giving up or abandoning love. It means releasing the grip that fear, attachment, or insecurity has on us and trusting that there is something better waiting for us on the other side. This is a skill that comes with due time, discipline, growth, but understanding that life is not always going to go the way that you want it. The process of letting go requires us to confront our deepest fears, the fear of loss, the fear of being alone, and the fear of the unknown are all part of what makes letting go so challenging. We often tie our identity and sense of worth to the things and people around us. Our job title, our relationships, and our achievements become extensions of ourselves. So when we are faced with the need to let go, it can feel as though we are losing a part of who we are. But in reality, letting go is not about losing. It's about creating space for something new, something more aligned with who we are becoming. Question 23. In revenge. Letting go is an act of courage, an acknowledgement that we deserve more than what we are currently settling for. When we refuse to let go, we inadvertently allow fear and insecurity to dictate our choices. We stay in situations that no longer nurture us because we are afraid of change. But it's in the act of letting go that we reclaim our power. We allow ourselves to be open to new experiences, to new relationships, and to new opportunities. In that space of uncertainty, we begin to discover the depth of our own resilience and capacity for growth. We learn that our worth is not tied to what we hold on to, but to what we are capable of creating for ourselves. One of the most powerful aspects of letting go is that it frees us from the weight of past disappointments and hurts. We can spend years holding on to grudges, unresolved conflicts, or regrets. These emotional burdens weigh us down and prevent us from moving forward. But when we choose to let go, we release the grip of past pain, making room for healing and peace. Letting go doesn't mean that we forget or erase the past. It means that we no longer allow it to control our present or our future. We stop letting past wounds define us, and we begin to heal in ways that allow us to move forward with strength and clarity. In relationships, letting go can be especially difficult. We often stay in relationships that are no longer healthy because we are afraid of being alone, or because we feel responsible for the other person's happiness. But staying in relationships out of fear or obligation only leads to resentment and unfulfilled potential. Letting go of relationships that no longer serve us is an act of self-love. It's about honoring ourselves enough to walk away from situations that drain us emotionally, mentally, or physically. It's about realizing that we deserve relationships that bring out the best in us, that support our growth, and that encourage us to be our authentic selves. Letting go of unhealthy relationships allows us to create space for connections that are more nurturing and fulfilling, and ultimately more aligned with our true selves. Letting go also requires us to trust the unknown. The future is uncertain, and change can feel uncomfortable and even frightening. But when we hold on too tightly, we miss the chance to explore new possibilities. The unknown is where growth happens. It's where we find opportunities for expansion, for learning, and for becoming more than we were before. Letting go is about stepping into that uncertainty with faith, trusting that even though we can't see what lies ahead, we are being guided towards something that will serve us better in the long run. It's in that leap of faith that we truly begin to grow. When we let go, we also give ourselves permission to redefine our lives. We release old beliefs, limitations, and expectations that have been imposed on us by others or by ourselves. Letting go allows us to step into a new version of who we are, one that is more aligned with our passions, values, and purpose. It's in this process that we discover what truly matters to us, and we gain the clarity to pursue the things that will bring us lasting fulfillment. As we practice letting go, we begin to realize that life is not about holding on to things or people, but about embracing change and growth. Letting go is a continuous process, one that requires us to remain open, to be vulnerable, and to trust in the unfolding of our lives. Every time we let go, we make space for something new, something better. The act of letting go is ultimately a form of self-liberation. It frees us from the constraints of the past and gives us the courage to move forward with authenticity, resilience, and hope. Letting go is not an end, but a new beginning. It is the first step toward creating a life that is more aligned with who we truly are, and one that invites us to live with greater joy, peace, and fulfillment. There is something profoundly liberating about stepping into the truth of who we are. So often we live our lives based on the expectations of others, defined by what we think we should be, rather than embracing who we truly are. We wear masks to fit into certain spaces, and we suppress our deepest desires to conform to societal norms or the wishes of those around us. And whatever. We live in a world that can make us feel as though we have to mold ourselves into something or someone in order to be accepted, loved, or valued. But here's the truth that many of us don't fully embrace. To truly live authentically, we must learn to let go of who we think we should be and begin to embrace who we actually are. This process is not always easy. It requires us to confront our fears and insecurities, the parts of ourselves that we've hidden away or deemed unworthy. For many of us, the fear of judgment, rejection, or failure is powerful enough to prevent us from showing up as our true selves. We worry that if we reveal too much, if we stop pretending to be something we are not, people will not accept us. But what if the real courage lies in shedding the false versions of ourselves we've been holding on to? What if the act of showing up as we truly are, without apology or pretense, is the most powerful thing we can do? When we choose to live authentically, we step into a life that is uniquely ours. We no longer feel the need to measure up to someone else's standard of success or happiness. We stop comparing ourselves to others and begin to honor our own path. This shift doesn't mean that we stop caring about others or their opinions, but it means that we stop letting those opinions dictate our worth or our choices. Our children, as we raise them, authenticity means living in alignment with our values, desires, and passions, regardless of what others may think. It means recognizing that our value does not come from fitting into someone else's mold, but from embracing our own unique qualities and strength. One of the most beautiful aspects of living authentically is that it allows us to build deeper, more meaningful connections with others. When we are true to ourselves, we create space for others to do the same. We become more real, more vulnerable, and more open. And in that openness, we invite others to show up in their truest form as well. Authenticity breeds connection, because when we stop hiding behind masks, we allow others to see us as we truly are, and we give them permission to do the same. This creates a sense of belonging that is far deeper than the superficial connections we often build when we are trying to fit in or impress others. However, living authentically also means facing the uncomfortable truth that we may have to let go of people or situations that no longer align with who we are. As we evolve and grow, we may find that certain relationships, environments, or commitments no longer serve us. Letting go is often a necessary part of the process of living authentically. It can be painful to walk away from relationships or opportunities that we once believed were part of our journey, but doing so makes space for the things that truly reflect who we are becoming. When we let go of what no longer fits, we open ourselves to new possibilities, new experiences, and new relationships that support our authentic selves. Living authentically also requires us to embrace vulnerability. This can be one of the hardest aspects of authenticity because vulnerability requires us to be seen in our full, unfiltered humanity. We may fear rejection, criticism, or judgment, but vulnerability is the key to true connection. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we show up as our real selves, without pretense. We stop hiding behind carefully constructed facades and allow others to see us imperfections and all. This vulnerability is what creates trust and deepens relationships, because it is in our vulnerability that we find our shared humanity. It is in showing our true selves that we allow others to do the same. But vulnerability is not only about our interactions with others. It is also about how we show up for ourselves. To live authentically, we must be willing to embrace the parts of ourselves that we might otherwise reject. This includes the parts of ourselves that are messy, imperfect, or unpolished. Authenticity does not mean perfection. It means embracing all aspects of who we are, the good, the bad, and the in-between, and allowing ourselves to be at peace with that reality. It is about acknowledging our flaws, our mistakes, and our vulnerabilities without shame, and understanding that they are part of what makes us whole. The journey toward living authentically is also a journey of self-discovery. As we begin to shed the expectations placed upon us, we create space to explore who we truly are, what we truly want, and what we truly value. This process often requires us to ask ourselves difficult questions and sit with discomfort. What do we want from life? What do we value most? What are our deepest desires, and are we honoring them? It can be challenging to face these questions, but the answers are what will guide us toward a life that is truly ours. When we begin to live in alignment with our deepest truths, we experience a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that is unmatched by anything else. Authenticity leads us to the life we are meant to live, the one that reflects our unique purpose and passions. In a world that often rewards conformity, living authentically takes courage. It requires us to stand firm in who we are, even when others may not understand or approve. It means taking risks, stepping outside our comfort zones, and embracing the unknown. But the rewards of authenticity are immeasurable. When we live authentically, we experience a sense of freedom that comes from knowing that we are living true to ourselves. We stop seeking external validation, and instead, we begin to feel confident in who we are. We let go of the need to please others or fit into predefined boxes, and we start to carve our own path, guided by our own values and desires. Ultimately, living authentically is not about being perfect. It is about being real. It is about accepting who we are in all our complexity and allowing ourselves to grow, change, and evolve while remaining true to our core essence. It is about embracing the power of vulnerability, letting go of what no longer serves us, and stepping into the full expression of our true selves. The more we practice authenticity, the more we come alive, because authenticity is the truest form of self-love. It is the permission to be who we are, unapologetically and unconditionally, in every moment of our lives. When we learn to let go, we begin to create the space necessary for growth. Life is full of transitions, and every change, no matter how small, carries with it an opportunity to transform. But in order to embrace this transformation, we must first release what no longer serves us. This process isn't always easy, and it often comes with a great deal of discomfort and uncertainty. Yet, it is through letting go that we free ourselves from the limitations of the past, and we open the door to new possibilities and growth. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning our values or discarding the lessons we've learned along the way. It's not about forgetting the people who have shaped us or the experiences that have helped us grow. Instead, letting go is about releasing the grip of the past and allowing ourselves to move forward. It's about recognizing that holding on to what is no longer aligned with our truth only keeps us stuck in patterns that prevent us from evolving. The things we hold on to, whether they are outdated beliefs, unhealthy relationships, or past mistakes, serve as anchors, keeping us tethered to a version of ourselves that no longer fits. Letting go is the act of cutting those ties, creating the space to embrace who we are becoming. Again and again, the discomfort that often accompanies letting go is part of the process. Change is rarely comfortable, and releasing attachments can feel like a loss. But in reality, it's an invitation to reclaim our power and redefine our lives. When we let go, we release the burden of carrying things that drain us, whether they are toxic relationships, self-limiting beliefs, or old habits that no longer serve us. By creating space in our lives, we open ourselves to new experiences, new opportunities, and new relationships that are better aligned with the person we are today and the person we are becoming tomorrow. Letting go also requires vulnerability. It takes courage to step into the unknown, to trust that by letting go, we are making room for something better. It requires us to face the fear of uncertainty and embrace the discomfort that comes with change. But vulnerability, far from being a weakness, is a strength. It is the courage to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers, that we don't know what the future holds. And yet we are willing to trust in the process. It is the willingness to let go of the need for control and to allow life to unfold in its own way. As we release what no longer serves us, we also create the opportunity to grow in new and unexpected ways. Growth doesn't happen when we stay stuck in the familiar or cling to the past. Growth happens when we step into the unknown, when we allow ourselves to evolve and change, and when we trust that we have the resilience to handle whatever comes our way. Letting go allows us to shed old layers, to remove the obstacles that stand in our path, and to step into a new chapter of our lives with fresh energy and purpose. Sometimes letting go means facing the truth about our past. It means acknowledging that certain relationships or situations were never meant to last, and that holding on to them only keeps us from experiencing the fullness of life. It means accepting that not everything is within our control and that there are some things we simply cannot change. But this acceptance is not a sign of defeat. Rather, it is an acknowledgement of our strength and our ability to adapt. When we let go of what we cannot change, we empower ourselves to focus on what we can control: our actions, our thoughts, and our responses to life's challenges. Through this process of letting go, we create space for new experiences that can lead to greater fulfillment and joy. The unknown, while intimidating at times, is where the magic happens. It is where we find new opportunities for growth, new relationships that resonate with our true selves, and new passions that ignite our spirits. When we let go of what is no longer serving us, we create room for these new experiences to enter our lives. Letting go, then, is not just a passive act. It is an active choice to take control of our lives and our future. It is a decision to trust that by releasing the old, we are making room for the new. It is an act of faith in ourselves and in the unfolding of life. When we embrace the process of letting go, we embrace the journey of becoming, and we allow ourselves to live more fully, more authentically, and more in alignment with our true purpose.